What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Pat Outdoors. Hope you're having a great day. I'm back with another Razor dirt bike project. This time we're actually working on my MX500 that's been sitting in the corner of my garage collecting dust for a couple months. I actually got this thing with my yellow bike, the off-road bike that I put together. This one, I promise you, is gonna be a lot more unique than any of my other builds. I got this bike off Craigslist a couple months ago, not running. I haven't been able to give it any attention since I've been a little preoccupied with my other projects, but it's time to give this one some love. This bike is definitely a little beat. You can see the seat is torn. All the plastics have creases on them, super faded coloring. Decals are just super tired. The front wheel is deeply rusted, so we're gonna get rid of that. It's just beat up overall. You can see that it's been dropped quite a bit. Even the chain guard plastic is cracked, missing some chunks. That said, I didn't want to just strip this thing down and rebuild it to be another functional bike. I think I've got plenty of those. I've got a 72 volt street bike, 52 volt off-road bike. I've got a 2-stroke and a 4-stroke. I want this MX500 to do something a little different that my other bikes can't do. Since we are in the middle of winter here in Virginia, I decided I'm gonna turn this thing into a snow bike. I already got all the parts that I need to complete this project in this garage since I've been collecting everything the last couple weeks. So this build series is gonna go by a lot faster than usual. I want to start off by working on the aesthetics, getting rid of all this tired, worn out stuff, and actually installing Honda CRF50 plastic fenders, fairing set. And while I have the bike apart, I'm also going to be reupholstering the seat. So I'm going to show you how to do all that. Let's get started. If you are planning on doing the CRF50 Plastics or body conversion, all you're gonna need to keep is the seat, the tank, and the hardware. In order to remove this torn up cover from the seat, all you're gonna need is a flathead screwdriver and a pair of pliers. You just need to pry each individual staple up and off of the seat, and then you can pluck it out with a pair of pliers. Sorry for the missing footage. My phone decided to run out of memory while I was recording that, and it didn't save any of it. But it's pretty straightforward. You just pry all the staples off and slowly peel off the cover. There's some adhesive in the center that you just gotta pull it slowly so you don't damage the foam. Don't throw away the old seat cover yet, because we're gonna use this as a template for the measurements for how we're gonna cut the marine vinyl that we're gonna be using to replace it. I just realized that the T50 staples I have here that I used on my YZ250 seat last week, the legs are simply too long. They're 1/2 inch. I gotta run to the store and get some 1/4 inch ones so it doesn't poke through the foam when I'm sitting on the seat. But before we step out, I'm gonna open this package full of the plastic so we can start test fitting it. Make sure that I don't need to get anything else from the store. Just from quickly mocking up the plastics against the seat, tank, and the fork, it looks like we should be able to install it with very little modification. On the rear fender, it looks like we just have to trim these tabs off and it should slide on, and it looks like the hole is actually going to line up with the factory seat hole. The side covers, these rear tabs slide into the rear fender. The front hole appears to line up properly. Then we just have to trim these longer tabs on the rear and drill a hole and make sure that hole lines up. For the front side fairings, I don't think we actually have to modify those. The 2 rear holes that bolt to the seat look like they'll line up okay. I haven't screwed it on yet with the tank, so we'll find out, but it looks like it's gonna work with the third hole. And then there's a fourth mounting point. There's this tab over here. I might have to make a bracket to bridge the gap between that bracket and the one on the corner of the tank. So I think that's the only modification we need to buy something for, is to make a small bracket to connect the fourth mounting point on that. The front number plate, very minimal modification. I think I'm just gonna cut this whole section straight up top, fold the bottom tab, and then drill a small hole here to use the factory mounting point on the fork. Looks like it's gonna fit just like the factory one. The front fender, however, is gonna be the one that's gonna take all of the modification, I think. The main mounting hole lines up just fine with the hole on the fork, but these two posts at the bottom side of the fork don't line up with any of these holes. So we may have to slot the ones on the back here to make those two posts work. And then we're gonna have to drill a hole over here to make some clearance for this nut. I'm gonna be spraying a little bit of the Scotch Super 77 adhesive on the center surface of the foam on the seat to make sure that the vinyl adheres nice and flat to it before we start stapling all the edges. And then instead of using these T50 12mm staples, I'm using these 6mm ones, or 1/4 inch. So you can see they're a lot more shallow than the other ones that we were using on the YZ seat, since the plastic is a lot thinner on the Razors. Check that out. I think it turned out really nice. It looks a lot better than my YZ250 seat actually. That's how the bottom side looks like. You just fold it over nice and tight and staple it all around. The edges look nice and smooth. I don't think I've seen anyone have this textured marine vinyl surface on their Razor seat. I think it's gonna be nice and grippy when you're sitting on it. If you are interested in checking this out, I think I got it for like 14 bucks on Amazon. I'll leave a link in the description below. I'm also gonna be replacing this red handlebar with a gray one that came off one of my MX650s. I think it matches the fork a little bit better and it's less of an eyesore, because this red's gonna clash with the red fairings on the CRF Plastics. So overall, I think this is gonna match a little better. Yep, definitely looking a lot better this way. The red Pro Taper pad also matches the CRF50 Plastics exactly. Just to give you an idea of the general mock-up so far. So you see the rear mounting tab is lined up against the rear subframe. The tank is lined up to the mounting hole. The side fairings, for the most part, do line up with the holes on the side of the tanks. With all the fairings bolted on, I'll show you what I had to do. So as you see, I made my own holes for the rear tabs after I trimmed them down. The rear hole for the rear fender, it lined up perfectly, so I didn't have to do anything with that. I did have to trim the top side of the rear fender. I just trimmed some of the other side of this plate just so it sits perfectly flat against the seat. The front holes did not line up at all. I ended up using some flat washers just to pinch it in place, but it's pretty reliable that way since this side plates slide in and clip into the rear fender, and then they're bolted on here, and then they're pinched in place here, not going anywhere. It lines up real nice with the gaps around the seat. The side fairings on the front, I didn't have to modify anything with the holes. You just have to massage the, wiggle it in place, one screw at a time, make sure the washers are on top. But it fit for the most part. Gaps look pretty good. I'm happy that the two holes lined up with the tank, so I don't have to do anything with the front. So I'm gonna show you once I bolt this on, what mounts we have to make. Here's what it looks like, all bolted down with the wraps off. Looks really nice and clean with the new seat on there. I used the original hardware with just a fresh set of rubber washers in there. It's definitely a very snug fit. You almost have to press the fairing against the tank just to get the bolt to line up correctly. And this is what I was talking about when I said you had to make some custom brackets. It's just to bridge the gap between the corners of the tanks and the side fairings. Really, these things aren't gonna go anywhere, but I'd prefer to not have it wiggling around like that when I'm riding. And I just wanna be very proud of my work because I think this bike's gonna look really freaking awesome when I'm done with it. So for the front number plate, all I had to do was trim the top strap off. I drilled a hole above this hole and I added a spacer in there before I bolted it down. Keep it nice and level with a fork. I also trimmed these two tabs that stuck out on the backside just because they were pressed up awkwardly against the fork, but it turned out pretty nice that way. And then I didn't have to do anything with the bottom tab since it lined up pretty nicely. For the front fender, I didn't even have to cut that hole in the back. I just hollowed out the two holes that were already there. I just hollowed them out a little bit more for them to line up against the two pegs that stuck out at the bottom of the triple tree. And for the custom brackets that we're gonna make, I'm just using this 1/8 inch thick aluminum flat bar that I got from Home Depot. I'm just gonna cut 2-inch sections, smoothing out the corners and drill a hole on each side, and that should work. Here's what the brackets ended up looking like. I'm glad I used aluminum, so it's very little weight. That's how the brackets look like, bolted on. Now the fairings are nice and secure. And that is how you install the Honda CRF50 Plastics or body kit on your Razor MX500 or MX650, same thing. The freshly upholstered seat pairs up nicely with it. Definitely gives the bike a refreshed look, brings it back to life, keeps me motivated to move this project forward and spend some time on it. If you enjoyed today's video or found it helpful in any way, do me a favor and hit that like button. And if you like this kind of content, want to keep up with some of my projects, such as this Razor MX500 snow bike build, consider subscribing to my channel. But this is going to be it for today. Thank you for watching.